Let me land on you here. First, let's talk about the Ukrainian ask here of us basically its own. It wants its own security treaty, and it certainly, and they want it to be stronger in NATO. Obviously, we have other treaties, security treaties we're a part of, but how would that work with NATO? And is there some inevitable potential tripwires here?
Well, this is quite an ask. Certainly, I think for the United States, an important part of improving Ukrainian security would be for us to have our strategy for the greater Black Sea region. You know, so much of the conversation about Ukraine is as if it's an island somewhere, but it actually is. It's in a region where we have 3 NATO allies, Turkey, Romania, and Bulgaria. There's huge economic potential for the region as a connector between Europe and Eurasia. So a longer-term relationship with Ukraine that is not only about security cooperation, but also diplomacy and economic investment, that would be a part of it. You know, we've done I think the Department of Defense has done a great job helping Ukraine with their training at Yavori, for example, and working with other allies, our Canadians in particular, helping Ukraine over the years. But a longer-term strategy for helping them modernize and get to where they want to be. Actually, after what I've seen the last 5 weeks, the Russians are going to be looking for a security guarantee against Ukraine. The way Ukrainian forces have performed so well.
Right.
I think helping them continue to modernize their military and all their democratic institutions is an important part of this.
But, General, I guess I want to go back to this idea that Ukraine wants a security agreement. If it can't join NATO, it wants a security agreement that includes the United States. As far as Vladimir Putin's concerned, NATO is the United States. So, this feels like a distinction without much of a difference.
I think that the United Nations has a role to play here. And then I also think about the Dayton Peace Accord, where the alliance was able to implement an agreement with the security forces from multinational security forces. Now, Russia probably would not be real keen on a NATO implementation force like we had after Dayton, although we did have Russian troops as part of the I-4, the implementation force. Mm-hmm. So there's a model. If there's a mandate and there's an actual peace and an agreement to be implemented, the problem, of course, with any of these things is that if it doesn't respect Ukrainian sovereignty, if it allows the lines to harden, then Russia ends up being rewarded for their aggression. And I think, obviously, this is not the direction that we would want to go. Ukraine, I think there has to be some sort of arrangement where we can help them militarily with training and cooperation, but I don't see how we can get past the hurdle that you've just talked about.
You can't imagine us agreeing to what Ukraine wants is if Russia steps back foot, comes back into Ukraine the next time. Basically, we have an Article 5-like commitment, which is what they're looking for, to join with their defense. You think that would be probably a bridge too far for us?
Actually, I think we could do it. We have allowed ourselves to be deterred by Russian threats when, in fact, the reality is I think it's a very, very low likelihood that they would use chemical weapons. I think it's a very low likelihood that they would employ a nuclear weapon. We have all the advantages of the alliance, and we haven't been using them. There's been too much talk about avoiding escalation when, in fact, we have the advantages, and we should be pouring it on right now in Ukraine, helping Ukraine. We need to talk about winning, actually, not avoiding escalation. We need to talk about winning and giving Ukrainians the ability to continue the pressure. Don't let Russia start digging in their newly gained territory.
It's interesting you say we got to start talking about winning. It feels as if we're in a situation where Putin isn't he needs to come away with some win here. And I don't see how the Ukrainian people feel comfortable giving him a win. If anything, as I've said, if your next door neighbor tries to kill you, how are you supposed to live next door to that person? Because a police officer came and said, no, your neighbor's not going to do it again?
Well, I don't think I'm willing to accept the conventional wisdom that Putin needs to have a win of some sort. I mean, honestly, at this point, he has, I don't know that he deserves some kind of an off-ramp. Now, look, I'm not a diplomat, and being able to give them some sort of a way to get out of this mess that they have created entirely, I understand the conventional wisdom, but I think, frankly, the situation now has changed to a degree that we have all the advantages. Ukraine is getting the momentum, and we should not be willing to accept anything short of at least going back to the pre-24 February line. And frankly, when President Biden talked about in Warsaw the other day that this is about democracy versus autocracy, we need to back that up. The president is right, and I think we need to use all of the assets that we have, not just military, to continue to push back and help restore all of Ukraine's sovereignty.
So you're getting at something that I've asked others. It looks like we've got our foot on Putin's throat right now in a way that we haven't ever had before. And I assume that it's got to be tempting to say, hey, if we can keep this up another 6 months, he may not survive.
Look, 1 April is a big day. On this day, on Friday, 130,000 Russian families are supposed to send their son to report as conscripts. This is the normally scheduled next wave of conscription for the Russian army. I hope that there is a massive information effort underway. I know that there is in some places to reach those families and say, really, do you want your son to become cannon fodder in Putin's army to fight and die in Ukraine the way thousands of Russian soldiers have already died? So it's not just about providing javelins to Ukraine. This is about providing truthful information to Russians so that they understand that no matter what happens in the next 6 months, there are zero positive outcomes for Russia. Nothing good is going to come out of all this. So I think that the top priority, candidly, is not getting a ceasefire. The top priority is making sure that democracy is successful in our longer-term strategic interests, which includes a democratic Ukraine.